Hi, this is Bio46, and for today's discussion video, we're going to talk about one of the current issues and concerns in genetics. Welcome! Just look, listen, and learn. But before anything else, I am Markin Delora Elbit, your reporter for today's video. Ethical issues in contemporary clinical genetics. The primary goal of this video is to offer an overview of the most important ethical considerations in clinical genetics. And now we have our table of contents. The reach of genomics is growing beyond research laboratories towards outpatient clinics and with the marketing of direct-to-consumer testing services, patients' homes. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, announced in April 2017 that 23andMe, a genomics business, will be allowed to provide genetic health risk testing for 10 medical conditions. The trend toward broader access to personal genetic information raises difficult questions for clinicians. The impact of genomics is growing beyond research laboratories towards outpatient clinics and patients' homes, thanks to the advent of DTC. With a constantly expanding universe of biological knowledge and technology, researchers must be equipped with solid ethical reasoning abilities to guide their work. Informed consent and predictive testing. Informed consent in research is the term used to describe a person's freedom to choose whether or not they want to participate in a study, provided that they are given appropriate information. Its formal history can be traced back to the Nuremberg Code of 1947, which was developed in the aftermath of Nazi-era human experimentation. The National Commission for the Protection of Human Services in Biomedical and Behavioral Research issued its first set of principles and recommendations to protect research participants' rights in 1979. The Belmont Report specifies three key principles for doing ethical research: respect for people, beneficence, and justice. The Belmont Report elucidates techniques to protect these values, including informed consent, risk or benefit evaluations, and subject selection. The conditions of informed consent in clinical practice are identical to those established in Belmont Report for research purposes. The patient must be aware of all relevant facts, have the capacity to reason clearly, can be able to make decisions freely, and must be able to reason clearly and act in accordance with their conscience. Predictive testing is defined as genetic testing on a pre-symptomatic individual that can determine whether or not you will develop or likely to develop a specific condition later in life. Predictive testing on minors for genetic disorders has created serious ethical concerns. Despite the fact that minors are presumed to be incapable of giving consent, many ethicists believe that legal threshold of majority is arbitrary. Nonetheless, clinicians are required to obtain parental consent for medical treatment of patients under the age of 18. Pros and cons of predictive testing to minors. Proponents of predictive testing for minors have gained prominence in recent years. Supporters point to research that highlights the psychological advantages of less ambiguity, beneficial impacts on the family, the right of the adolescent and family to prepare for the future, the prevention of harm that may follow from not testing, and the concept of autonomy. Concerns about predictive testing of minors were addressed for the first time when clinical genetic testing was undertaken on a small scale, particularly for adult-onset conditions with little or no treatment. Genetic testing of minors has been controversial from a range of viewpoints, ranging from those that emphasize the danger of psychological harm to those being tested and to those concerns about social discrimination and potential for future autonomy to be infringed. Return of results. Incidental findings refer to both predicted and unexpected results that were not sought out at the beginning of the testing. The term secondary findings refers to results that aren't the testing's primary objective but are nevertheless worth checking for. The revelations of such discoveries in clinical practice is a contentious bioethical issue. The medical community agrees that secondary findings with actionable clinical importance should be returned and reported, but opinions differ on whether conditions and variations fit these requirements, as well as the extent to which patient preference should be considered. Clinical practice aims to improve individual health outcomes, while research aims to produce generalizable knowledge through hypothesis testing. Clinicians and researchers have different sets of legal obligations, ethical duties, and regulating rules as a result of this difference in the two systems of inquiry. The right to information distinguishes between patients and research participants. Under Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, patients have an indisputable right to access personal information in clinical practice, while the participants in research do not have such unfettered access to information. Institutional review boards maintain the authority to decide whether certain disclosures may harm the subjects. Data should be gathered anonymously or with identities deleted and destroyed as quickly as possible, and research data should be accessible only to those who have a need to know. Protocols should be written to eliminate the need to acquire and store personally identifiable information about research participants. These principles clash with the current situation in genetics research, which promotes collaboration, data sharing, and large-scale research networks. Such practices make subject anonymity more difficult to ensure. Clinicians will increasingly be faced with the management and contextualization of their patients' genetic information as genetic and genomic technologies improve, and a dearth of easily available genetic counselors. As a result, providers will be under more pressure to comprehend the practical and ethical challenges of genetic testing. And that's it! I hope you learned something from this video. Thank you for watching and God bless us all. Bye!